What's your carnal theory?
Hey there, you're listening to Carnal Theory, where we talk with experts from around the world to learn how taking command of our sexual story affects our personal wellness, sexual experiences, and relationships with ourselves and others. Hi, everybody. I am Abba.
And I'm Amanda. And today on Carnal Theory, we are talking to the fantastic Dr. Catalina Lawsin, who has over 20 years of experience in clinical psychology. She's a researcher, a professor in the field of sexual health, and has worked all across the globe. She's also been a part of a leading research team in the development of Aviva, the first sex therapy for Latina cancer survivors, and she hosts the Sex Marks the Spot podcast. We had Dr. Catalina on the show a while back and are so happy to have her here again to dive deeper as we address this month's topic. Catalina, it is so lovely to see you again. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, ladies, for having me. It's awesome to talk again.
Yes, huge thanks. So today we are talking about Sex 101. So we're going to dive into as many questions as we can cover, and probably some ramblings of sorts also as they come up, of questions that people wish they could have gotten answered early on. So to start off our conversation, we always begin a Carnal Theory podcast with the Carnal Theory that our guest has brought for our consideration. And a Carnal Theory is it's something that's meant to challenge a presumption or a perception that we might have, and we'll talk about it, and then we'll reflect on it at the end of our conversation as well to see if maybe even during the course of this conversation, maybe our presumptions or perceptions may have changed while thinking and reflecting. So, Catalina, if you could you say the theme that you've brought for our consideration today?
So my question to you, or what I propose to the world, is that sex should be our first vital sign. How sexually satisfied are you? When was the last time your doctor actually asked, how sexually satisfied are you? Has the doctor ever asked you that?
Nope.
Okay. So my research showed that one question, when you look at, there's so numerous questionnaires around sexual satisfaction, function, health, physical health, as well as psychological and social well-being. That one question correlates strongest with everything, with physical, psychosocial, relational, and functional outcomes. How sexually satisfied are you? So what I'm proposing is that we actually, a lot of the work I do is with training healthcare providers and integrating how we address psychosexual concerns in health. And so what I posit is that I think we all, healthcare providers and individuals, need to ask ourselves regularly, how sexually satisfied are you? Because this one question, first and foremost, normalizes the centrality of sexuality to our overall well-being, but then also opens up this conversation of saying, let's actually use sex inherent in this conversation, regardless of how you actually define sexuality for yourself, inherent in just beginning to integrate it in our daily conversations. We've already began to think more holistically. And the way we train clinicians is we always start with like an upside down pyramid. And to me, in asking ourselves or asking patients, how sexually satisfied are you? It's another way to do that and also first recognizing as a clinician that we are seeing you as a whole person and that is your health and your well-being. So
I love that so freaking much.
Let's unpack that. I feel like you touched on this in a lot of different ways, but you said that sexual health is a part of your overall well-being. Can you expand on that? In what ways does sexual health contribute, or sexual satisfaction perhaps contribute to your overall well-being?
So when we think about the way I define sexuality is how we connect to our bodies, to ourselves, and then how we choose to connect with others. And from that place, when you start thinking about neuroscience and physical health, all of these things, when any of those things are awry, our connection to ourselves is the first. Sex is going to generally desire is going to be the first thing to disappear and the last thing that we acknowledge. And so, because just purely the way we have thought. But so when we think about our overall well-being and health from that standpoint, as that marker, then of how we connect to ourselves, then you then begin to actually specify, oh, I have back pain, or, oh, I am anemic, so I have low energy. And then you bring it from there. But rather than thinking, I got to start plugging holes, because in medicine, there is no cure. There's no cure for shit. There's not a cure for a common cold, let alone cancer or heart disease. So the idea in life is we're all going to die. So we're just plugging holes in the dam so that we live the life the best we can. And so the idea is rather than thinking, oh, I have this one problem, or, oh, my partner cheated on me here, or, oh, this one job, or this one shitty day at work, rather than thinking so specific, our body doesn't discriminate between those stressors. Our body learns how to connect across anything, and it begins to learn and have the same habits, same reactions, regardless of what the target is. So I say take a back end approach, more from thinking about, okay, if we just focus on how you're connecting with yourself, one, that's the only thing you can control, period, ever. That it's from that vantage point that we then begin to address things one by one, you know. And then when you think about that from just like a hyperarousal neuroscience perspective, and when you bring in like meditation and things like that, that's where those things come in, where you detach from all of those norms and those things that we've been taught, and the systemic things that just inherent are oppressive in our existence, to then bring the existence back and the focus back on what you can control, regardless of where you are and how you physically are feeling. Does that make sense?
100%.
Since we're partially coming at this from a frame of Sex 101, which is not guaranteed, but theoretically it could mean you're earlier in your years of life. At what age do you think it is? I've been trying to think of how to phrase this. Not even appropriate. When do you advise starting to ask that question? Are you sexually satisfied? When does that make sense and it registers and it's right, quote unquote, whatever the heck that means?
So my niece is 13 and she is starting sex ed, like proper, like they're getting into it, sex ed. And I mean, she knows what I've done. She's watching my TikToks and stuff. And so like, you know, and I said, well, I hope that they're talking to you about pleasure. Because when you're thinking about consent, it's consenting to, am I actually pleased with this? And that puts on you, behooves of you to actually know or be open to or curious to explore that and consenting to that. So I think that at the very beginnings, when we think about our connection to ourselves, it is how much do you trust that you are autonomous in your choices and in control of your choices. And we can teach that and instill that throughout development. As children develop and they find you begin to use their voice and they begin to actually make their own choices of who they resonate closer with or who they feel. I think that that's what's at the core of it. When we start using the term sex, whether it be about actions or sexuality, orientation, preferences, whatever, like I said, it's those 3 words, 3 letters. Once we start talking about that is when all of this other shit comes in. So I do think that the appropriateness comes absolutely in the context and the relationship in which it's actually given. meaning that there isn't a great rule. This is why I think it's hard in schools when you start thinking about sex ed, because the reality is that not every kid, just because they have hit physical puberty, is emotionally able or has been taught the skills to actually self-explore and make sense of things for themselves. And so much of sex ed should be about, how does this relate to you? But because so much of just education isn't taught like that, we train in most, particularly in American education, we train binary. This is right, this is wrong. Sexuality in life isn't binary, but our brain wants to think safe or danger. So there's so many factors that contribute to this binary concept that in the appropriateness, even your difficulty asking that question speaks to how much it's, do you trust me being able to answer it? Do we have the space to explore what answer comes up? And that's where I think it's thinking about those things, and then also just saying, fuck it, we're going to bring it up and then figure it out when we do it.
Yeah, well, there's obviously just so much taboo around talking to kids about sex, talking about sex at all, where like I can see the full benefit of asking a child a both age appropriate as well as age digestible question, like, are you sexually satisfied? It might not be exactly that, because again, that may or may not make sense. That might not be the digestible question for them at, maybe a pre-puberty age or even after that. But just, I can just see the immense benefit of asking some level of question of that, bringing that into their healthcare awareness at the earliest age possible, not only to help break down those taboos with themselves, with their healthcare provider, et cetera, societally, but also that it just helps you have that awareness that this is something that you need to be giving reflection to, and that it is in fact a vital sign, like you're
100%. Like, again, if you use pain as the model, pain is assessed every single time you have a healthcare interaction. That was a long time in the making. And still absolutely is not universal. And is super culturally laden. And it took a good 20, 30 years for the pain scale to actually get integrated and it be posted on everybody's wall and in everybody's medical record. And I'm using that same paradigm to how we begin to talk about sex and sexual satisfaction and what that means. Because again, pain, the reason we have a scale at 0 to 10, and I anchor it, 0 is no pain and 10 is knocked out unconscious, is that every person's individual perception and experience of pain is different, as is our sexuality, as is how we define it, as is how we manage it, all of these things. So pain for me is the vital sign and the paradigm in which I see sexuality falling, and so getting back to how do you frame it? Again, there is something about saying sex that immediately, all just where we still are is that immediately has so much power to it, that I do think that, to me, similar to pain, because again, do not get it twisted. Pain assessment in kids is still under assessed, particularly amongst little kids, nonverbal kids. Sure. We don't know how they experience pain oftentimes. We assume they don't, unless they're not eating or they're behaviorally showing something.
Totally. Right?
And so the same model is for sexuality, in that, you're going to try it. And in research in general, you would try to ingrain these constructs at the lowest hanging fruit. Who's most open to it? We're having this conversation now, and you guys as audience is already open to it. Maybe there's something new, but it's more from the frame point at which they're listening to this, that something triggers another way to look at it. It's not generally, they're learning something new. there's something in their body and their experience in that moment that's like, ah, and that's where people experience like expansion, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I see it as far as how we begin to integrate the conversation and assessment of sexuality into teaching younger individuals with this. I do think that I would just be happy because, again, you started off by saying, a lot of this is for younger individuals. Oh my gosh, the number of people who are in their 50s and 60s, the majority of people think that their partners give them pleasure, that it's because their partner is a shit lover that they can't have pleasure. That's the majority of the world, regardless of your age.
Yeah. Yeah. 100. Yeah.
And so, and the number of shit I get from older people of, well, my wife doesn't think that, or my husband's the best. Like, and again, what is that? That's giving someone else that power when it is absolutely your own ride. They're kindling.
How do you, for people who, and I mean, this is probably a majority, if not close to all people who aren't taught sex education in conjunction with satisfaction, with pleasure, with the power you have in connection to it, how do we find or learn these skills to reflect, to find the tools to know, am I satisfied?
This is where I think a lot of right now the self-help, self-love, self-care space is helping us. Just begin to first and foremost heighten our awareness to ask ourselves, what am I feeling? What am I needing? And starting off there to heighten that awareness, to even just begin to check in, let alone connect and dance with yourself, So I think that that's where it's leaning in on, okay, where's the biggest space and where we're seeing movement on this? Now, again, as much as therapy is talked about, and, I think so much has shifted, particularly during the pandemic. Do not get it twisted. It's still absolutely a privileged process that has tons of systemic and cultural barriers to it. And it is also just one way of supporting individuals, right? But we've done so much work at destigmatizing it. But do not get it twisted. The majority of the world still thinks that therapy is because somebody's problematic, or they have a mental health problem, or they're broken, So I think it's the same kind of thing of where you got to start of assessing where people's level of awareness is and tailor to meeting them. And that's why I do think that this is where we need to think interdisciplinary, because there's going to be so many different people who can touch people in different ways and explain it different ways, that one, first and foremost, in anything in healthcare, just try to do no harm. And I think that for the most part, I think heightening awareness can help with that. It's generally the space where people are saying, and now do this, that you see a lot of the harm. Mm-hmm. Because I do think that a lot in this self-help space is mostly people's, I had this experience, so if I can do it, you can too, which is unfortunately just not the way it works, which is why we have science, which is why we have empirically validated treatments, because we just know that that's not the case. Just because you were able to, that's fucking awesome. And your way may likely not work for everybody.
Yep.
And so I think but I think it's starting off with a level of awareness and asking yourself, what do I need? What do I want? What do I feel? Just however you need to do that, however that begins to connect, and then doing that over and over and over, so that once you're in that space, then, because remember, your body knows first, all of this is conscious. Asking yourself that question is conscious. Soon your body's already reacted and the moment's gone. All of this is retrospective. So the idea when we're talking about awareness, which leads to eventual change, is getting closer and closer and closer to the actual moment. And then it's just constant.
Mm. What do you think? How do you think people are emotionally affected by this lack of sexual knowledge? How do you see that manifest?
Loneliness. You know, the Surgeon General before last really heightened the world's awareness about how loneliness is the world's epidemic.
Mm.
And particularly in this age, and I think that definitely came out in the pandemic, this age of connectivity and how available and reachable we are, whether physically by planes or just freaking like even sexually now, like remote controlled dildos. I mean, they're like, can't wait to explore more of that. That our experience of loneliness is so huge. And it's so not correlated with what's around you. That to me, at the core of, I mean, humans are social beings. Our primal need is connection. And so to me, when we neglect how we connect with our bodies, we don't have the ability to connect with others, because you got to connect with yourself first to fully experience the connection of another. And I think that's where everything trickles to it. Everything of our choices we make in our work and the fears, all of it. And then it just accumulates. The next thing you know, this is the life you actually have chosen. A life of disconnection, a life of have-tos rather than wants. And that's where I feel like, that's why I always think it's bringing it back to the basics, you know, because I do think that we can get so bogged down with try all these different things. And I like when I teach mindfulness, I'm like, well, shit, what are you already doing? Let's not add anything else. Your life is fucking already hard and chaotic and busy. This idea that anything would be additive rather than integrative is not realistic. When we think about most health lifestyle choices, like eating, how much you're on social media, like driving, all of these things, so much is trying to actually remove or add on to the behavior rather than, well, how are you engaging during it already? And that's, again, that's where mindfulness comes in, because it's not adding anything else. It's being aware of what actually is, what's actually happening there. Because from that place of awareness, then you can then choose how you want to think about it and how you want to respond.
Do you have some integrative ways that people could either reflect upon or improve their sexual satisfaction? Back to your first question. Are you sexually satisfied?
I mean, the first is one, just asking and seeing actually what comes up and then leaning in on that first emotion. If the first emotion is fuck, I don't know. Well, why don't you? Like, I feel like it's, again, starting with right where, what comes up right then, and then going with it and getting curious. And through the mental exploration, what I think is that beginning to even just shift your body, changing, like I'm facing this wall versus that, changing while you're already thinking about it begins to then start to link and heighten your awareness of how the thought and is actually reacting to the emotions, and now how your body is to it. And that from that place, then you can actually begin to wrestle with yourselves. From that place, then you can begin to actually say, God, like right now, I'm getting sweaty. Why am I getting sweaty? Is it because of the lights, or I'm nervous, or what's happening? What does my body need? I probably don't need coffee. I probably need a cold water. And then I'm listening to myself and thinking, oh God, cold water. That's really, really relaxing. And then I'm thinking, okay, I remember this like one river and how clear it was. And then immediately I can start feeling that coolness. And the next thing you know, I'm tingling. That's the work. That's the fucking, when you think about Tantra and how we begin to actually bring pleasure, you can do it anytime. And so, in just asking that one question, that's my process of where I get to and can probably give myself an orgasm from it because I've fucking done it a ton of times, right? And so that's the idea of what you, and of course, everyone's like, oh, how can I have an orgasm? Because that's what people fixate on a target. We focus so much on an outcome. So that when we ask people how sexually satisfied you, the first thing they think is, how else am I having sex? No, it's the first thing people think. They think frequency. Because again, everything's so concrete, you know? So I think the biggest thing is the first step is literally is exploring what is your reaction just even from to the question, and then seeing where your body and your mind and your actions take you from there. And if I'm doing that with somebody, then just like how you guys are watching me go through this and you're saying, holy shit, she's really sweaty. Oh my God, what am I? Am I sweaty? Is there enough light in here? And then that's what happens.
What would you say to people or about this in regards to people who might have, I don't know if like a traumatic experience is the right word, but like any of the many negative things that can come with sex that have potentially made it difficult to find satisfaction in sex? Maybe they had an STD or an STI. Maybe they got pregnant when they didn't want to, et cetera, et cetera. How do you work through that and still come back to this place of satisfaction?
Well, again, this idea inherent in what you're asking is this idea that satisfaction is always positive. You can be sexually satisfied. And the one thing we know about sexual satisfaction is that it's actually it's not correlated to frequency and it's not related to a lot of the markers. And actually there are people who don't have sex who are sexually satisfied. So inherent in that, I see it as, God, our sexual energy actually is what can nurture us and help us to heal.
Yeah.
And it may not fucking feel good. It likely will not, because your body, in not wanting to heal, has purely just protected you from that physical, and it is physical pain. Trauma is physically draining on your body because your body is protecting you. So as long as it has to do that and keep that armor up, that is resource needing. It needs that. And so your reservoir isn't as big. And so from, again, what is it? Like 85% of individuals as adults have experienced at least one serious adverse event as a kid. Meaning that whether that's actual to the level of what most people define as trauma versus just an awful thing that they witnessed even. We know that actually shifts people's reactions. And that's where we begin to learn how we are going to be accepted or what we can do to feel safe, you know? So I think that it's acknowledging that if this is something that you're wanting to focus on, if you're focusing, whether it's through the lens of sexual satisfaction or overall well-being, or I just want to take better care of myself, there has to be an acknowledgement that process in change will be likely uncomfortable because it requires new things and letting or compensating or shifting existing strategies. And inherent in that, our body is just like, fuck no. It's going to hold on to it. And the older we get, the more it's like, what the hell are you thinking? This has kept you alive. So that's where so much of the nurturing and the compassion has to come in.
Yeah.
Because it's okay. It has helped you. Sucks that you have no trust in anybody and that you can't maybe be touched. Yeah, that fucking sucks. And it's there for a reason, because what actually started it really fucking sucked.
Yeah.
So this protective mechanism right here, all right, okay, we just got to really be gentle with it. And this is where so much, I do think, particularly in a lot of the self-care, it's really important to, you gotta do it gently. The one thing we know with our body is that it doesn't like these jolts. So when you hear these people who are just like, let it go, you just gotta move on, you're responsible for your closure. Like, to me, it's almost a militant way. And it just unfortunately can re-traumatize individuals and exacerbate that. And the one thing it knows is our body will try and be like, okay, I'll try. But then when it gets smacked, it's like, okay, fuck you. I told you I wasn't going to open up to this. And now you motherfucker, I'm never going to trust you again. And that's what our body does to us. Mm-hmm. So, we got to just do it gentle. Yeah. You got to do it gentle. And I think that coming from me, most people don't think there is anything gentle about me. But it's like, slow your roll, because your body needs that. It just needs it. And we're all just so wanting to get out of it. We're wanting better, and it's just appreciating that is an evolution,
Yeah. In this world where it's very difficult to understand evolution, and we do want instant gratification, and we do see in black and white, are there any, so understanding that as the baseline, are there any indicators or benchmarks? You were using the pain spectrum, you were likening it to that. Are there any indicators or benchmarks that people can use to say, I am in a good place, or I'm not in the best place I've ever been, or I really fucking need some help because I'm tapped out on our sexual satisfaction?
Well, and I think that's a great question. And I think that it's very much like, if you were to ask yourself this is, again, what comes up first as far as your own marker, and really just starting there, because that's the paradigm in which you're existing.
Yes.
If the paradigm is, God damn, I haven't gotten laid in a year. Well, then that's what's important to you right now. There's nothing wrong with it, and it's not judging it. So going with that. One of the things I loved about when I saw the Dalai Lama in Sydney is he said, everyone just thinks that they want to be Buddhists. And I had this, and somebody, he's answering questions, and this guy who was Muslim was like, you know what? I really want to be Buddhist. But I may lose my family. But I like the Buddhist way. I like your teachings. But my family will leave me. And so Dalai Lama was like, well, then don't fucking be Buddhist. Like, why are you needing that so much? And that's, I think, so it really is what benchmark is important to you right now. And knowing that will change. Again, like looking at pain, it does not, all that matters is that when somebody says, I'm at an 8 or a 9, now we care, how much is that moving? That's it. Like, it sucks that you're at an 8 or 9. I may look at you and think you're actually at a 2. Regardless, it doesn't freaking matter. If that person believes that they're at an 8 or a 9, you better bet they are experiencing the pain at an 8 or a 9. And that's the same thing. Whatever benchmark, whatever is important to you, meaning that because there are some people who have amazingly sexually active, and maybe they're poly or they're doing all of these things. And then they're still like, yeah, there's nothing new. I'm bored. Again, whose judgment? If that's their experience, great. Then fine, it's up to them to figure that out. So that's the benchmark. So always starting off and then just trusting. And this is where it's important when we think about how to do this with anybody else. First and foremost, this is why it's important for ourselves to verbalize it. We need to validate ourselves with our own voices first, before we share it with anyone else. And automatically put it up for any freaking opinions. We have to do that ourselves because, again, our brain doesn't, if it doesn't trust ourselves, our Broca's area, which controls our voice, just won't work. It'll shut itself out. So first and foremost, we need to be able to actually have this conversation with ourselves, and particularly around sexuality. It is hard to have these conversations with people who, particularly our partners or our family, people who we think may judge what we're actually saying. That's natural.
Yeah. And how interesting
with ourselves.
And how interesting that sex is often likened to your throat chakra and sex organs in your throat. Like these are vocalized needs and carnal desires that either you're able to say or they're bottled and trapped.
Absolutely.
And causing pain. Yeah.
100%. 100%. And I think the beautiful thing to me of what always brings me back to bringing things to sexuality is that it is at our core. It is the most intimate in the paradigm in which we live in now. It is the most intimate. It is the most primal. It is the most basic. That's where we came from. That is our life force. We're not going to, the species won't continue if we don't fucking figure this out, you know? So like, to me, that's why I always kind of, and now I'm really leaning in. That is it. This isn't like our G spot, where that is, and all of these chakras. It's not by happenstance. Like it's evolved this way with the universe, like with the earth. And there's reasons why we get grounded in certain areas of the world versus not. You know, I mean, all of these things have been happening and we're just experiencing a blip of it, you know? So, yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing these thoughts. Do you have any, based upon this theory, do you have any additional takeaways that you feel a listener would be valued to know?
I think the biggest thing I try to promote is to just open up the conversation and start having the conversation with yourself. Because you're the best fucking entertainment anybody could ever imagine. And so like, start with yourself and just explore this. We determine our experience, no one else. And it's really just acknowledging the fear and taking that responsibility. You know, like I think that-that's the thing. So much of it, it's easier to say my partner doesn't satisfy me. Change. Because we have no control over it anyways. We can just bitch about it, be frustrated by it, and actually we can't do anything about them. You know? So yeah, like it sucks. Sucks that people do that. And so it's really hard. It's really appreciating how hard it is to assume control, how hard it is to trust your own choices.
Yeah.
Like that's where again, I think that sometimes when you hear a lot of people who are just like, go out and get it, self-empowerment, particularly as women. It's like now it's kind of like with the whole woke culture. How are you not feeling empowered with yourself? Why are you not listening to your own voice? I want to just be like, back the fuck off. You know?
Yeah.
Like, and that's another way we shame one another.
Yes.
Like, you're adding shit on top of diarrhea. Like, come on. Like, I feel like, I mean, and that's the thing. It's really just coming down to, this is not easy. And it's not as if you get to a place of transcendentalism and then you're there. Expect that, enjoy the view because it's about to get shitty again. Like another storm will come. Like, you know, and it's really embracing that. And I think that as women in particular, and I'm always going to just say women because flat out in our lifetime, that likely won't change. Life is harder. The fucking systems have been there for all of eternity to make it like that. Period. We're the ones who can have the babies. That's never going to change. Like in and of itself, with just that, if you can have a baby, regardless of your gender identification, that in and of itself will make you, there's just different challenges that come with it. Mm-hmm. We don't choose that. And so I say that because I think it's really hard as women, and I think a lot of your listeners, and certainly most of my following is more women, that it's just hard, and we are so hard on ourselves. Particularly, like, I do think that now as women, we're realizing, holy cow, we actually can have great sex too. We can actually be pleasured. We can actually, holy shit. Now it's like, oh, fuck. I mean, I do. I think now it's like, oh, fuck. Wait a second. I've been settling for mediocre. Oh, fuck. Now I actually got to give a shit. Oh, God. And then you realize, well, when you do, oh, God, actually, most of it is actually average and shit out there. And then you got to wrestle with that, like that's a little. And I think that's where we got to really be patient with ourselves, because I do feel like Goop makes me think of this. It's always like upping the ante. Like, well, oh, that's really good. Oh, it's so great. Well, and now you got to do this. Like, it's always something else. And it's like, God, it's hard. And I think that's what we got to be easy with. And that's why I think a little bit of my tone and a little bit of my approach, because I'm not super theoretical, and I don't because I do think it's just, there's so many, this is why people love the Dalai Lama. He doesn't use a lot of big fucking words. He's not over intellectualizing things. He is as basic and simple as shit needs to be. And it's like, that works. Because I feel like that's, we're just adding. And again, this goes back to that additive stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
Where so much of the fun for me is actually just unpacking whatever just comes up. Like, again, like when we first started, I mean, I don't know if you guys had questions, but it's kind of like, well, what ends up happening? And then it's just fun. And then you just see what unpacks, and then, oh, that feels good. And then you go down that road, and that's how we can do so many things in business, all of these choices that we make. Like, this idea that we can foreshadow and mitigate heartbreak or failure, all of these things. Jesus criminy, it's just not, doesn't work like that. You can plan it all you fucking want, and something will fuck it up. It just won't. And that to me is where, when you talk about detachment, that's the reality. And to me, that's beautiful, because then it's also like, well, fuck it. It's kind of like, I don't know, but I will know right after I do.
Or maybe a mentality of like, you don't know what you got till it's gone. Like, you need that reset to know, to then have a different view of what is good.
Well, and I feel like that's the thing is you generally already know what this feels like. You know what not doing it is, because that's what you're doing right now. That's happening. That's a truth. And then, and like I said, you will know right after you do it. Like, then you will. And what is the worst case scenario? So much of when we talk about anxiety, and again, so much of this is where all of these disciplines come back in, right? It's like just that fear. And this is where edging comes into place, because pleasure and pain are right next to each other in our brain.
Right.
And goddamn, does something feel really fucking good when it felt like shit right before, right? Like, and to me, that's it. Like, and if we continue to live life like that, that's where, when we think about sexuality and living our life, like fully embracing it, God, and you see how like I mean, you're like, your eyes opened up and you're like, and you feel that, and you're like, oh God, yeah. And then you just do it. And then when you're feeling low, you do that again. And when you're feeling sad, like, I mean, again, one of my friends, I was at a Tantra retreat and training a couple weeks ago in Panama, and one of my girlfriends, like, she has laughgasms where we'll be doing some like serious meditation or welcoming the earth or whatever. And next thing you know, and her body hasn't released. So she will just start laughing. And that's her body's externalizing her orgasm. And she was, and I'm just like, and she was like all worried, like she was looking at me and she thought, oh God, you think I'm laughing at you? And I was like, no, man, I was fucking totally feeling your heat coming out of that. I was like, you're juicy. You are riding it like a motherfucker right now. And I was like, and that's great. And again, and it's just like, that's the thing is that this is where awareness really can be so powerful is that when it's so painful or so heartbreaking, or we're trying to get a job and it's just so hard and we're so tired, it is reminding ourselves, holy motherfucker, I chose to go down this path. This is actually what I chose to do. Holy shit, this is the dimensions about it. Oh my God. And then it's actually, that's when you begin to ride that wave. When you're like, holy shit, I thought that surfing was so cool and it's scary as fuck. I'm totally waterlogged, feeling like shit. And this is what I fucking chose. And then that's when the laughter comes because you're like, yup, this is the fucking A of it. Like and that's what I love to me. And even when you think about actual sex and particularly intercourse of how crazy it gets, like, I do think it's sometimes fun when you think of like sensate focus, this idea of you're witnessing yourself. I mean, motherfucker, we all look crazy. Like we do. We all look like literally insane. My hair goes crazy. And I'm like, and then when you think the kinkier you get, the crazier the body positions are. And then it's just kind of like, and then that to me is like, how fun. You know? I don't know.
We put a lot around sex of the shame and the fear and all the taboos, and we never integrate the word fun into things or pleasure into things. And it is the closest synonyms that you could actually have.
Oh my God, yes. Like, I feel like particularly now, there's been such a science to how do you have orgasms? Oh, wait, but now you can have multiple orgasms. And then it can be whole body. And then, oh my God, you can ejaculate. Again, that's a little bit of the more, and your body begins to, oh, now I learned how to orgasm. Oh, wait, now I want to do it this way. And again, it just keeps on. And you got to remind yourself during it. You know, and that's where you just got to, and it's okay. It's natural. That's just, again, how our brains, like our ambitious brains are going to work, you know? And it's acknowledging that and then laughing about that. Like literally, like, I mean, it's amazing. Like how much we just want to keep up in the ante. And all that is looking for difference. Looking for novelty. And we can get that because every single moment we're different. And it doesn't actually matter what the fucking thing it is we're doing or what we're focusing on. Focus just like 1 centimeter to the left and it'll be different.
Yeah. Well, in a beautiful, unexpected derailment of Sex 101 questions, it actually has been distilled down, which is reflect upon it for yourself. It's your own vital sign. Ask yourself if you're sexually satisfied, as Dr. Catalina has.
How sexually satisfied are you?
How sexually satisfied are you? Yes. Ask these things, ask them frequently. And that loops back to what we're pitching of commanding your biography. So it's all deeply, deeply integrated. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, ladies. And thanks for fostering and holding this space for so many. Like, I just think it's so important. And I think that, like I said, I feel like we've all got such different experiences to bring into community that just to know that there's the different spaces out there. I think that's the biggest thing is that I hope people leave knowing there's so much space. There's so many ways to connect. And we are 7, maybe 8 billion now. There will always be someone else that you can connect to.
Yeah. 100%.
Wonderful.
Thank you. And we hope that this episode has given all of you who are listening something further to reflect upon. We literally have posed this question to reflect upon, so certainly do so. You can reach out to us with questions or insights on our Instagram page at My Sex Bio or at Carnal Theory. And we encourage you to go look and explore Dr. Catalina's work on drcatalina.org or on Instagram at Dr. Catalina 2.0, and definitely on our TikTok, which is kind of just blowing up right now. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, thanks, ladies. Thank you so much for all of your work. I really appreciate it.
Always deepest of gratitude. Thank you.
Awesome. Bye, ladies.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Carnal Theory is produced by My Sex Bio, an educational platform empowering people like you to take command of your sexual biography. Our sound design is by David Usma and theme music by Min the Universe. Video editing is by David Usma, and our assistant video editor and marketing coordinator is Maria Taruque. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, and Spotify at My Sex Bio. Visit our website and join our e-letter at mysexbio.org and support our work by joining our Patreon. Thank you.